up now.
So I gave myself some parameters for drawing, and now I'm going to do a quick gesture drawing. Now, a gesture drawing is your first reaction to what you're looking at. It's really fast. It doesn't matter what it looks like, and you're the only one who needs to see it. So what you're doing is you're reacting to what you see on the page. You try to look at the object more than at your paper. And to do that, we want to, here we go. Try to fill the space. So one of the things I tell people to look for is trying to touch at least 3 sides of your paper, if not 4. So we really want to spread out, and if it goes off of the edges, that's okay. So we want to draw really big, really fill up that space. So my first thing I'm going to do is draw a vase and some flowers and really fill the space. Okay, so, and it can look like scribble lines. It doesn't have to be a finished, we don't want a finished drawing. We just want a reaction. And we want a guideline of where to begin. This is our starting point. This is our diving board. So the first thing I did was I drew a vase, sketched in some leaves and the outlines of some flowers, and tried to hit the edges of the page. Then I always add a cast shadow, because a cast shadow is what is going to ground it. Otherwise, it's floating in space if it doesn't have a cast shadow. And then I always indicate a table edge. So at this point, I just drew straight through the vase just to get an idea that it's sitting on a table. And I'll come back to that later. So that's that. So tell me, can you see these lines okay, or should I switch to a Sharpie that you can see better?
I would say switch to a Sharpie, Joy, if you can. Just because it's pretty bright back there, but that's my personal opinion. But it looks great. Yes, we could see it when you brought it up close.
Yeah, that's one of the issues I've had with digital teaching. So I do have Sharpies here. You just don't get quite the line quality that you would with a pencil. So yours will look better with the pencil than mine will with the Sharpie. Okay, so I'm going to go over that again.
I'm sure ours will not look better, but we're going to give it our best, Joy.
Yours will look great. So I am going to use my Sharpie, and I'm going to go over these lines because I don't think it would hurt to do it again. So for a gesture drawing, I'm going to start with the vase, go through the leaves and the outlines of the flowers, put a cast shadow and a background down, trying to fill the space. I want that bouquet to look like it's exploding off the paper. So I'll start with a vase, suggest some flowers and some leaves. Cast shadow. table edge. That's my starting point. And a lot of times I notice people want their gesture drawing to be perfect, or they start erasing in the beginning. But really, we work similar to the way you would write a paper, where you work general to specific. So you start off really generally, loose. You want to keep your lines loose and general, and then we get more specific. So I've just got an idea of where things are. And at this point, I can erase and I can redraw and I can place things where I think they actually go. Here we go. Let's try to get some flowers in the picture. Okay. So now with the vase, something to think about with an ellipse with a vase is that a lot of times we know that the top of it is a circle. So we want to draw this full circle. But really, for the top of the vase, we'll probably just see maybe a little bit of a line or maybe a little bit of a curve. It won't be a huge circle because we're looking at it in perspective. So it'll be kind of a line or a little bit of a curve. The bottom of the vase will need to match that same curve that you put at the top. So these two curves will be the same shape. So if I have a curve like this here, I'll have a curve like this, just like that underneath. Whatever's on the top is on the bottom. Okay. And then, let's see. I'm going to try to show you with the pen. Now, one of the things, once we've got our gesture, one of the things we want to look at is our line quality. And that means our lines are always going to be thick to thin, thick to thin. So press, release with your pencil. You can also kind of twist it in your hand. That can help. By doing that, you're going to have thick and thin lines. And what that does is that allows the light to appear, an illusion of light coming in. If we have a thick, heavy line surrounding all of our flowers, they'll look very flat. So if we make it thick to thin, light and dark, we'll get a more realistic drawing. So let's see here. So I'm going to start with the rose here, like that. So I've got a rose and it's going to come out and out in. And I want those really thick to thin lines. And now I can start slowing down. So I worked really quickly to get that gesture, and now I'll start slowing down a little bit. Here. And then I want to work the parts as a whole. So I try not to lift my pencil from my paper too often. I want to keep my pencil on the page as much as I can. And I'm going to draw this right there. There we go. And one of the other things you want to pay attention to is the repeat motif. Repeat, repeat, repeat. So whenever we have one shape, we want to make sure that we've repeated that shape at least 3, 5, 7, 9 times. So we want to have repetition. And that's easy to do when you have a bouquet of flowers to get things to repeat. So let's see if I can get a little bit more in here. There we go. Okay. And so I've got the rose, I've got these. Now let's start adding some more leaves. And I'm wondering if I can show you with the pencil. Let's see here. So if I press, release, press, release. And in fact, you might even want to turn your paper over and practice going thick to thin, thick to thin. And you can twirl it so that you kind of lose a little bit of control over it. So it looks a little bit more loose. We want to keep it loose and gestural so that our lines are going thick, thin, press, release, press, release. Okay. Now, with the vase, one of the things I would say when you're drawing a glass vase is less is more. So the less information you put down, the more the eye will fill in instead of you having to put all that information out there. So I'm just going to draw a little line where the water is, thick to thin line. You can let it break up. And then you'll notice that the stems get larger as they go under the water. So they'll start off with some thinner lines. And then when they go underwater, they're about 2/3 bigger. And for the cast shadow, a cast shadow can be a really good way to make your drawing more dynamic. So a cast shadow is very specific to whatever it is you're drawing and whatever the light source is. So if you're setting up a bouquet of flowers at home to draw, or anything for that matter to draw, you're always going to want to put a lamp or have a window to one side. So you have, I have the light coming in from my left. So you always want to have one side of light coming in, and that will make it look more volumetric, more 3D. And the cast shadow will be very specific. It will make shapes that the flowers have made, and a specific shape to the vase. The thing to remember about cast shadows are that they always have a soft edge. So they're not going to have a really hard edge. They get softer as they go off, as they go further away from the object. So the thing about working in Sharpies is I lose that subtlety that I can get with pencils. So within the cast shadow, oftentimes you can get 2 or 3 values. The value is how dark or how light it is. So you can have like a light gray, a dark gray, maybe a medium gray within that cast shadow. Just make sure that it has soft edges. And a way you can get soft edges is to take your eraser and just sort of blend it off on the edges. That will make it softer on the edges for your cast shadow. Okay. Now, I'm going to see if I can get closer and switch to a pencil so you can see more details. Are there any questions so far?
Hey Joy, can you recommend, can you just kind of go over the pencils and kind of supplies that might be good for like a home sketch?
Yeah, yeah. Let's get this set up. Okay. So you can make anything work, to be honest. You don't have to get fancy with anything. So for example, this is a regular school pencil, which is an HB. And HB is just kind of middle of the road. H is hard, B is soft. So it's right in the middle. And I like to use a heavy duty eraser, but like a pearl eraser or any kind of eraser will do. I like these white ones because they don't leave any traces of eraser. The white plastic ones I like to use, but it really doesn't matter. And then I like to draw with Ebony pencils, and I get these at Walmart, and it's made by Prismacolor. And it would be equivalent to about an 8B, which is a really soft pencil. And the reason why I like to use softer pencils for drawing is because I can get a really hard line with a soft pencil. If I use a hard pencil and I press down just as hard, it's not as dark of a line. So I could go with a soft pencil, an Ebony or an 8B, I can go as dark or as light as I want. Okay, so I think if I do this now, I think I can show you. And any kind of sketching paper is fine. It really doesn't make a big difference, to be honest. Typing paper is fine, printer paper is fine. And yes, you can absolutely highlight these with watercolor. And this is what I'm using today for my paper. It's a watercolor paper, actually. Now, if you want to highlight this with watercolors, one of the nice things you can do is to use either an ultrafine or a regular Sharpie and go over your lines a little bit to darken them, and then just add little flecks of watercolor. So one of the things I like to do is just add maybe 1 or 2 colors into the flowers, or you can just use a little bit of green for watercolor, and it makes a really nice, delicate combination to add watercolor into your drawing. There we go. So let's see. Oh, you're welcome. Now let's see if I'm going to try this again with the Ebony pencil, and you can tell me if you can see it this time. I'm going to try it a little darker, and now I've got this a little bit closer. So let's see if that works. Okay. So a quick gesture. Can you see that? I'm wondering if that's working if I use pencil instead of Sharpie. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I'm doing my gesture again, and I don't let my pencil come off of the paper very often. So I just go straight through my lines. I'm overlapping my lines. And now I'm going to fill it up with some leaves. And a gesture can just be these little squiggles. Okay. So did you notice when I drew this that I don't think I lifted my pencil off the paper. That was my goal, was not to lift my pencil from the paper. So basically this is all like one long line. And it's loose and gestural and it's kind of wonky, and I want it to be loose like that so it looks organic. With a still life, one of the goals is to make it appear to still have life, even though it's still in front of us. We want it to look like it's full of life. So now I can start straightening up edges. Like my vase is crooked, so now I can come in, use my eraser, and start to change things up. So I'm erasing the table edge that goes through the vase. I'm going to straighten up my edges with the eraser. And remember the ellipse on the top should be the same as on the bottom. So I'm going to make this slightly curved shape for the top and the bottom of the vase. One of the things I've noticed when I'm working sideways is that sometimes my drawings turn out a little bit lopsided because I'm working from an angle. Okay, so now I've got a lot of kind of thick lines here. I'm going to use my eraser and break up the line a little bit, because I remember how I want to have that thick to thin line every now and then. I'm going to break up that line so it'll be thick to thin. Press and release. Press and release, thick and thin. Thick to thin. And then and then one thing you can do to double check that your table edge is in line is bring a piece of paper down and just make sure that it kind of lines up with your, so that you have a straight line for your table edge. And now the cast shadow. So the cast shadow will kind of come from this edge to this edge. And it might be darker right underneath the object and then get lighter as it goes away. So it fades as it goes off the edges. Now, when you're drawing, you want to pay attention to how much value you have. Value is how light or how dark an object is. Now, if you want something to look really volumetric, if you really want to call attention to an area, then high contrast will make it pop out more. So if there's one flower in particular you really want to call attention to, so let's see here. Maybe it's this one. You would add the white of the paper and a really dark in the shadow areas. And that's contrast, and that's going to make it pop out. So the more contrast you have, the more volume it will have, the more attention it will call to it. Okay, there we go. So a gesture drawing can be a drawing on its own. You can leave a gesture drawing as your finished drawing because gestures can be really beautiful. And in fact, I'm sure you've seen lots of if you look at old master drawings, you'll see gesture drawings and you think, wow, that's gorgeous. And that's what we want, is that first reaction, that idea of movement that you can get with a gesture drawing. Okay, so now I have my cast shadow, my vase, my table ledge. Okay. And now I want to make sure that I'm getting some flowers and leaves that are really exploding off of the edge. So let's make sure we've got some things going off the edge here. I really like this one right here. So I'm going to make this one and this one come over on our left side. So I'll put it up close so you can see it. So over here is going to be my leaf. Thick to thin, thick to thin. And you'll notice that it has a little bit of dark here, and then it gets lighter here. So I'm going to make it darker and then lighter. And then I'm going to draw these here. And I'm pressing and releasing, pressing and releasing. And one of the nice things that happens here too is the change of scale. So they get smaller and larger. And remember how I said repeat, repeat, repeat? Well, this really helps out that repeat motif. Yeah. And you'll probably have a little bit more dark on the underside ones than on the top ones. So let's add a little bit of shadow into those. Okay, there we go. So we have a leaf and we have this one. Now, let's pull that back a little bit. I want to get some of these. And these can just be little squiggles. You don't have to get specific with them. Nothing has to be too detailed, loose and gestural. And we just want, we have, let's see, let's put 3 of them over here off the edge. And just if you're familiar with, say, landscape design or other design elements, you know, when you're planting in your yard, you might put 3, 5, or 7 plants to suggest this harmony and repetition. Well, that's what we do when we're drawing too. And with the Still Life of Flowers, I like to work in odd numbers. So I will draw 3 of those little things over here and make those go off the edge, towards the edge. So I'm filling up that space nicely. So over here, I've got two, and let's put one more, 3. And then I can add some leaves. I've got 1, 2, 3 leaves. 2, 3. So I'm filling up the left and right sides Now let's get some more into the middle and the top here. Let's see, why don't we start with this flower here, the rose, the orange kind of coral rose, because it will take up a lot of space here. So that's this one here. And it is right next to these. So I'm going to put it right here. And again, I want to think about less is more. So if you squint your eyes and look at the big shapes. So first, I'm going to get a big shape of it, kind of an outline of it. And then squint my eyes and look for shapes. So if I squint my eyes, I see this is sort of a cylinder or kind of a rectangular shape of light. But then this is really beautiful. Look at the negative space here. The dark areas are triangles. So we've got these darker triangles in here. So that's how we can sketch that, is to break it down into shapes. So if I start looking at this in terms of shapes, I've got my light shape and then my dark triangles, like that. Okay, does that make sense? So we're getting some high contrast for that flower, the rose. And then we've got this nice repetition here of these magenta flowers. And again, we don't have to go into detail. We're just looking for the big picture. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 7. And we can just kind of put circular shapes to start. So let's see here. Kind of organic shapes. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then we can just kind of put a little squiggle in the middle. Yeah. Okay. And then let's get some of these leaves in here. So let's see what we've got here. 1, 2, and 3. So we've got 3 leaves here. This one, and then 2 more. So how are these coming along? Let's see if I can see you. Let's see. I'm going to try to see.
I'm embarrassed what I'm going to show you.
Oh, if you feel like you don't want to show it, you don't have to. Hold on, I'm trying to figure out how to see everybody.
There's a participants link, Joy, at the bottom you can click, and then you can see like a grid view or a Oh, nice. Nice, Jennifer Roch. Rummels, look at that. That looks great.
Mine?
Hi, let me see yours.
Look at mine.
Love it. Love it. Nice job.
Nice, Hannah.
Wait, why is he not looking at mine?
Hi, I see yours too, Abby.
Do you
I
like
totally see it. I love it.
Thank you, Auntie Kelly.
You're welcome. That looks so good. That was fun too.
You're the bestest, Auntie Kelly.
I've at least got tips on how to continue to. Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I'm having trouble. I see participants, but I can normally do this from my computer, but I'm having trouble from my phone being
Oh,
able to see other people. Let's see.
You just flipped us around, Joy.
Yep, now you see my hallway there. Okay, okay, well,
Can you see mine?
I can't see anybody. I don't know how to do that. Now I see you. Okay.
I'm not drawing, I'm just listening.
And let's see. So Kelly, I see you. Can I see your drawing? Oh, okay, beautiful. All right, so, oh, these look really nice. So let's, I did it in Sharpie, but I haven't done it in the drawing part yet. Let's add the stems here. Okay. So now let's go ahead and draw. So for the water line, it's going to be, you know how we made the vase line a slight curve and the bottom line a matching slight curve. Well, we'll need to do the same thing for the water line. You know, it's about 2/3 of the way up. So we're going to make a water line there. Again, that kind of thick to thin line. And then we'll just suggest some stems coming down to the water line. And they're kind of grouped together. So it's just a mass really of stems. And you can do thick to thin, thick to thin. And then once they go into the water, that's when you've got the optical illusion where it magnifies them. So now they look much larger. So we'll just make some larger stems going down into the water. And I'm still using that thick to thin. I always think when I'm drawing, I tell myself thick to thin, press, release, press, release. There. So now we've got thick to thin. So we have our cast shadow. The stems get bigger under the water. A line to suggest a table. And then we're really filling the top space with a repetition of leaves and flowers and shapes. Okay. Got that? And let's see.
Joy, I really miss doing these in studio.
What?
I really miss doing these in studio, and I'm always grateful for your teaching and expertise. So
I
thank
know,
you again
it's-
for being one of our very first volunteer instructors ever for Tula Takir.
It's fun to work in person. And so I was wondering, there's a couple of other things I'd like to go over. We can continue working on this, but one of the things I wanted to mention was if we're, hold on, I'm going to swap this out. There we go. Is when you're working, how to get a nice light source to make it look like it's more three-dimensional. And when we do that, one of the things we look for is having that direct light source. And there will be, here, let's go ahead and you could either turn your paper over just somewhere on the, in a margin. We'll just draw a little tulip. There you go. There, okay. So do a quick gesture and then thick to thin lines over it. Okay. Now that can be a drawing in and of itself. So a gesture can be a drawing by itself. And then if we just work with line and we have that thick to thin line, then that's called a line contour drawing. And a line contour drawing can be a drawing in and of itself also. You can just leave it as a beautiful line. So that could be a finished product, just having a tulip in line. But if you want to have it with shading, the shading is what makes it look more volumetric. That's called chiaroscuro. And to get that, we have a pattern of light. So that cast shadow is part of chiaroscuro. So having a cast shadow will help make it look more volumetric. Now, there will be a pattern to the light. So you always want to have a direct light source. You'll always have a highlight, which is the brightest light of all, the brightest light. Then the next thing you have is kind of a diffused light. So then it's called the primary light. So it's like the white of the paper, then a really pale gray, pale gray. So we have the white of the paper, the pale gray. Then you're always going to have a core shadow running through the object. So the darkest part of the object. So if you squint your eyes and look for the darkest part running through the middle, there will always be a dark section running through the middle. It can be in anything, shoes, flowers, faces. You'll always have, and you can see it on me right now, there's a shadow here and a core shadow running through the middle. I mean, a highlight here and a core shadow. So now we're going to darken the middle. So we've got our core shadow. Now, whatever is underneath is always going to have a little bit of light bouncing back up from the surface. So there's always a little bit of reflected light. So underneath an object is always going to have, get a little bit lighter again. So in here, you have that really pale gray again. And then right above the core shadow is going to be your middle value, just straight down the middle gray. So kind of a medium gray. And that is called chiaroscuro, which means clear to obscure. And there's a book that I would recommend for anybody who's interested in drawing. And it doesn't matter how much experience you've had or if you have no experience at all. It's Betty Edwards. And you might have heard of this. It's called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. Betty Edwards, Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain. And it has these wonderful exercises and it guides you from not knowing how to draw to drawing anything you want, really. It gives you all the techniques that you would need for drawing. And so what she calls chiaroscuro, because that's an old term, old masters that in the Baroque and the Renaissance period that they used for drawing. was chiaroscuro, which in Italian is clear to obscure. She calls it light logic, which is a lot easier to remember because you think about the logic of how the light comes up here, makes a shadow going through, has a little bit of reflected light bouncing back up. That's light logic. And that is a really good way to make things look 3D using light logic. And the best way is always to get, I always have a little lamp off to the side.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, I was just gonna say, does anyone have any questions for Joy? Oh my gosh, this was so great. I did like 4 sketches. I started one and then I went back with you and then started another one because I love that you could just sketch so quickly and get these, you know, just really quick ideas. It was great.
Yes, that's a really fun part. And a lot of times when people learn gesture drawing, it's kind of all they want to do. And I feel that way. I like to do gesture drawings every day. I keep a sketchbook, and in the mornings when I have my coffee, I'll do some quick sketches. And sometimes they're not worth showing anybody. Sometimes I think, oh, wow, that I could, you know, I could frame that. But other times it's just for me. It doesn't have to be for anybody else. And
I love it. I love seeing all your sketches that you post on Facebook. I love it.
oh, thank you. Now there's one other fun, just little study I like to do if we have time. It's just a quick sketch. So we talked about drawing flowers with gesture, with line, and with light logic. The other thing I'd like to do is if you just have a scrap piece of paper or just turn your paper over, anywhere you can find a little space. And I like to make 6 sections. And this is just a fun study. It's not, it's something you could do at any time. There we go. Okay, and so I'm just going to divide this. Let's move the flowers out of the way. Divide this into 6 sections. Doesn't need to be perfect. And the thing about drawing lines and is communicating. And a lot of times you want to communicate with your lines to communicate some sort of feeling. So you want your still life to have some evoke some sort of feelings. So what I like to do is talk about how our marks can express ourselves. So in each of these, I want to assign a feeling to all 6 boxes. And I am going to say, I'm just going to, this one's easy for me. I'm going to say joy for this one. And would anyone like to chime in and name some other emotions you would like to talk about drawing?
How about happy?
Happy.
Love.
Love. 3 more.
Hannah, did you have one?
Peaceful.
Peaceful. Good one.
A really nice one. I like that. Peaceful. 2 more.
How about fun?
Fun. Did you say fun?
Yeah.
Okay, fun. Fun. And 1 more. Anyone can join in.
How about surprise?
Surprise. That's a good one. Okay. So now within these boxes, we want to communicate that feeling just with mark making and no icons. So an icon for happy might be a smiley emoji, but I don't want to communicate with an icon that we're all familiar with. I want to communicate with how my marks are placed and how much weight I put or how much emphasis I put on my marks. So some things to think about is how your marks fill the space or how light or how dark your marks are. And if your marks have sharp edges or soft curvilinear edges. So I'll just give an example, but I want you to be able to do this without me. For surprised, maybe surprised is coming out of its box, and maybe it's, sort of fun curvy lines, and maybe they're all moving upward. That's how I would communicate surprised. And you think about how it would feel with just marks. And maybe there's nothing down here at the bottom at all. Maybe it's all at the top. So why don't we try that? And you're just using marks, light or dark, curvilinear, up at the top or at the bottom, towards the middle. Think about how you're going to convey those feelings with marks.
I'm gonna just chat for a second as we wrap this up too, though. We've got about
Yes.
2 or 3 more minutes, you guys, to finish your sketches. And thank you to everyone who's joined us, of course. This is so fantastic. We do have upcoming next, we have got the skin and hair care session with the certified oncology esthetician, Annette Scott. So if you guys are interested in that, that's coming up next. And again, thank you to Joy, our volunteer from virtually day one, I think, when we started this. Joy was the first person I called to talk about art therapy. So we really couldn't.
And Joy, can you tell everybody where they can find you as well, like either online or take some of your classes from if they want to do this again?
Sure. So my website is joysartstudio.com, and I try to update my Instagram and Facebook page almost daily. So you can always find me on joysartstudio.com, and you can register for classes on my website. And if you have any questions, you can also contact me at joy@joysartstudio.com for an email. Or
Awesome.
through Instagram and Facebook are also good ways to catch up with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. I'm going to wish you happy healing because I know you just had surgery. So thank you for taking the time out to do this for us while you're healing.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you for joining me.
We missed your
That was
face.
great.
We're glad to see your face without a mask.
Yours too. Thanks for coming.
All right.
Okay,
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
All right. Thanks again, Joy. Thanks, everyone, for attending.